Hey everyone, I'm Jason, and this is your commentary on Genesis chapter 15. Sometime later, Abram had a vision. The Lord said to him, "Abram, do not be afraid. I am like a shield to you. I am your very great reward." But Abram said, "Lord and King, what can you give me? I still don't have any children. My servant, Eliezer, comes from Damascus. When I die, he will get everything I own." Abram continued, "You haven't given me any children, so a servant in my house will get everything I own." Then a message came to Abram from the Lord. He said, "This man will not get what belongs to you. A son will come from your own body. He will get everything you own." The Lord took Abram outside and said, "Look up at the sky. Count the stars if you can." Then he said to him, "That is how many children you will have." Now, God also said something very similar to this in previous chapters to Abram when he said that your descendants would be like the dust of the earth. He intentionally uses these two images. The dust of the earth is to represent the physical offspring of Abram. It's his descendants, the Hebrews, the Jews. The stars in the sky represent the spiritual offspring that Abram will have. So God uses both of these images to show the fullness of the descendants of Abram. Abram believed the Lord. The Lord accepted Abram because he believed. So his faith made him right with the Lord. Now, technically, Abram did leave his land and obeyed God. So there was action involved. But it wasn't just the action that made him righteous before God. It was his faith, his belief. And because of that belief, he did act upon it. This is a very important verse in Scripture. It's actually referred to in 3 different books in the New Testament. He also said to Abram, "I am the Lord. I brought you out of Ur in Babylonia. I wanted to give you this land to take as your very own." But Abram said, "Lord and King, how can I know I will take this land as my own?" So the Lord said to him, "Bring me a young cow. Also bring a goat and a ram. All of them must be 3 years old. Bring a dove and a young pigeon along with them." Abram brought all of them to the Lord. Abram cut them in 2. He placed the halves opposite each other. But he didn't cut the birds in half. Then large birds came down to eat the dead bodies of the animals and birds, but Abram chased the large birds away. As the sun was going down, Abram fell into a deep sleep. A thick and terrible darkness covered him. Then the Lord said to him, "You can be sure of what I'm about to tell you. Your children, who live after you, will be strangers in a country that does not belong to them. They will become slaves. They will be treated badly for 400 years. But I will punish the nation that makes them slaves. After that, they will leave with all kinds of valuable things." So God's giving Abram a prophecy. It's going to take place in the future when his descendants actually go into Egypt. We'll get to that point in the book of Exodus as God is bringing them out of Egypt. "But you will die in peace. You will join the members of your family who have already died. You will be buried when you are very old. Your children's grandchildren will come back here. That is because the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached the point where I must judge them." The sun set and darkness fell. Then a burning torch and a fire pot filled with smoke appeared. They passed between the pieces of the animals. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram. He said, "I am giving this land to your children after you. It reaches from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates. It includes the land of the Canaanites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, and Rephaites. The Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites also live there." Now, the practice that just occurred here is actually an ancient Eastern covenant that's being made, where you take the animals, you cut them in half. Normally, 2 parties would have to walk down, and they would pass between the cut-up bodies. And by doing this, they were saying, if I break the covenant, may the same thing happen to me. So it was very severe. This is different, though. Abram didn't walk with God through the path. God went by himself, which sets it apart from all the other covenants. because the other covenants are more like a contract between two people. If one breaks it, then the other one is off the hook. Here, God is making this promise on his own, with nothing to do with Abram. It's God who's giving the grace and the mercy here, and God who's going to fulfill the promise on his own. Well, that's the end of Genesis chapter 15. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.